Thank you. Now let's move on to a second question. Lenny Shad, Katy, Texas Independent School District CIO, argues that we need to escape the cocoon mentality that permeates our schools. That is to say, we can no longer operate as though for 7 hours a day we can wrap kids in a tight cocoon and for 17 hours a day have them operate in an adult world. We need to educate young people and perhaps even adults to promote and instill personal safety online. Is this something with which you would agree, Kate?
Yes, definitely. Like they were saying, you can't just come up with consequences to prevent actions. There has to be teaching of the students before they even use the internet or before they even go out into the adult world. And even adults to a certain extent. Many adults take the attitude towards social networking sites that is just a popular fad. Well, it's not. It's really changed the landscape of social interaction. So there are some measures that need to be taken so that people will know how to behave online and what consequences their posts might have on the rest of their lives.
Mr. Seymour, what would you suggest? I mean, how do we get parents to be more engaged and more involved and realize this changing landscape?
That's a tough one. I have 2 young girls, and I know, not daily, but I often inject myself in their lives to find out what they're doing and find out where they're going and who they're chatting with. The only reason I have a Facebook account is so that I can look at my daughter's Facebook account. I think parents have to be educated as to what's going on out there. I do know there are parents who have their head in the sand and think everything's nice, but I know from other parents I know that when parents are aware of what their kids are doing and when they're communicating with each other, word travels fast. And I know that within our community and my daughter's friends, there have been a couple times when things have come up and been shared that were inappropriate, and we pounced on it right away. That's difficult to do, though. I mean, you got to monitor your kids. You have to know your kids' friends. You have to have a relationship with the parents of those friends. And I don't think that can be done in every setting. I think it starts by educating parents as to what's going on. Many parents, as I said, these technologies are advancing incredibly quickly. They're advancing exponentially every year. And the kids are ahead of it. And we're always a few steps behind. So to the extent that parents can educate themselves as to what's going on out there, they're going to be better off. But I still think we're always going to be playing catch up with these guys.
Ms. Strong, from the perspective of being in administration, I mean, what could you suggest that the school could do to broaden public parent awareness? I mean, should we offer to have some type of workshop for parents, or should this be put into some kind of an agenda?
Good question. We do have workshops. We have had workshops. The discipline that comes across the discipline that's come across my desk this year regularly has a Facebook component to it. I don't have the hard data with me, but I'd say it always feels like there's some aspect of the story where somebody posted something on somebody's wall and that started the chain of events. I like to print those things out and show them to parents. For some parents, it's the first time they've ever seen that. I'm wondering, do you make your daughters friend you so that you can read all their stuff, or do they have their own accounts?
My older daughter friended me. My younger daughter doesn't have an account.
She has no account. So you do have access to everything she posts. How about you guys? Would you friend your parents?
Personally, I would not, but I think what Mr. Seymour did is important, because it's the reason there is so much bullying is because there is no guidance from their parents, because the teenagers rule the social world. It's of our time, and since the parents aren't involved in it, they're not teaching us how to do it and how to control ourselves.
So, but you still wouldn't friend your mom?
I probably would not.
How about you, Kate?
Actually, it was a requirement for me to have a Facebook that my parents were friended. Okay. But I think parents have to walk a very fine line, because not only do they want their children to feel like they trust them and to have a certain respect for them as they start to become adults, but also they want to protect them at the same time. I mean, there's so many ramifications that come with posting something on a Facebook years down the road. Not only future employers are looking at what you're posting on Facebook, so it could have consequences for your job, but also, I mean, you seriously could hurt other people without intending it, because someone might read something you posted online, and without your tone of voice or your face to back up what you're saying, they might take it the wrong way. So you really have to be careful with what you post up online, because it could always come back to haunt you in the future.
Well, I think those are some powerful ideas that we have to take into consideration. Well, this seems to lead us to a third question we need to ask, and that is, how do we help people, especially young people, appreciate their responsibility for their content and actions using multiple forms of digital media? So, Nick, what do you think?
I'm gonna have to say we need to help the young people. Like, I want to bring up the point again I was just talking about, that it's the idea that in the world, not the social media, we have our parents to guide us. And I think that's really important up to most of your life, and then until you become a parent and you're teaching your own children this. But within the social media, when we're not having the same parents guide us and show us like our path and how we should act and the morals online, and we're creating them ourselves, it's a lot different than they are in just the world alone.
Any reflective thoughts on what Nick has just said that you'd like to share?
My relationship to social networking, speaking for the I'm sort of probably the last of the non-digital natives, is that it sort of replaces sending a letter. I treat it as a way to communicate like I would with sending a letter or sending an email or making a phone call. And my students treat it as if it's a substitute for being in the room with somebody. And that's just a fundamentally different opinion. It's not, I might have misspoke in a letter, it's I might have misspoke to someone's face. And I guess that's why they call it Facebook.
Well, you know, when you talk about writing a letter, that's kind of a private experience, whereas with this digital media, there's no privacy. I mean, as soon as it's there, it's everywhere.
But I still think you have a responsibility to reflect before you act. Everything's immediate, you know, texting and Facebook, everything is immediate. And I think that people get in trouble when they don't really think out what they're about to do. They respond to something rather than pausing and thinking about what the appropriate response would be. That's where I think people get in a lot of trouble. You should really think, you know, now is this something I could say to somebody face to face? I mean, because the art of conversation is being lost, and instead you're, you know, sending little quips here and there. I think if you teach kids to pause and really think about every word they're putting out there, that'll be memorialized. That may cause them to think twice before they send, you know, post things on walls or send angry barbs. Because I know I've seen some really angry emails and really angry texts in the past that people have told me a day later, I shouldn't have sent that, I'm sorry. Well, think about it beforehand, and you're going to solve a lot of problems. We have to get kids to reflect rather than just respond all the time.
You know, being sorry doesn't resolve the issue, that's for certain. It's too late, as you just suggested.